Right, good morning everybody. My name's Kate Revilius. I'm Executive Member for Transport here at City of York Council, and this is my decision session on Tuesday the 11th of March. Welcome to everybody. We've got a number of agenda items today. I haven't had any apologies to absence, so everyone that I was expecting is here. I have no declarations of interest for the items on the agenda. And I am going to sign the minutes from last time round. There we go, thank you. So I think we have 8 people registered to speak today. I'll call each of you up individually, and you'll have 3 minutes, and if you'd like me to give you a 30-second reminder close to the end, I can do. So I've got 2 people speaking on item 6, which is the Government House Road and Water End Slip Road item. The first person is Andrew Beattie. Do you want to come up to the table, Andrew? Would you like a 30-second reminder? No? Okay. Just go when you're ready.
Councillor, I'm here again in relation to our 2020 Res Park application for Government House Road, which was supported by the owners of 8 out of the 9 properties in the road. Ours was a simple application for residents-only parking on the road, which has been sort of extended to include provisions in relation to the slip road, which is what you can see from the representations in support of the advertised restrictions in Annex A, that we agree with the recommendation and reasons in paras 11 and 12 of this decision report, and accordingly with option 1 of the report itself. The commuters, shoppers, and recently St. Peter's School pupils all-day parking continues on the slope, and to an extent on Government House Road. There can be 3, 4 or 5 such cars on the slope, and parking on Government House Road only increases. By the way, and to correct an assertion in Annex B, no Government House residents ever park outside number 1. I don't even park there myself. The dangers to pedestrians and cyclists on the slope highlighted before continue, and only recently a driver lost control of his car on the slope and crashed through the gate at the bottom before demolishing a streetlight. So we hope the recommended option will be approved to lead to implementation. Thank you.
Thank you, and I'll take that into consideration. Thank you. The next person I've got is Rachel Cornish. Rachel, do you want to come up? Would you like me to give you a 30-second?
No, thank you.
Okay. Go when you're ready.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm here to express my concerns about the proposed 24-hour parking ban on Government House Road. This ban would effectively cut off local access to the River Ouse Esplanade, a cherished recreational space for families and dog walkers. The council suggests locals use the park and ride service, but this is not a viable alternative for recreational users. Park and ride is primarily for commuters and visitors from outside York, not for local families with small children and dogs who wish to enjoy the Esplanade. This option does not promote the kind of short, frequent visits that are typical for local families and dog walkers. Further, the proposed ban seems to be based on assumptions rather than evidence. The council's thorough investigation did not identify parking problem on Government House Road, and there is no rational justification for a blanket ban. Given that each property on Government House Road has ample off-street parking, as was mentioned, a more reasonable approach for this council would be to implement limited parking hours that balance residents' needs with public access. Despite my requests, the council has yet to identify how many spaces there are on Government House Road to assess the impact of these restrictions properly. I'd also like to address concerns from residents that Government House Road is too narrow for parking. If this indeed is the case, then the proposed blanket ban on public parking does not adequately address the issues. as it still allows residents, their guests, and blue badge holders to park in these areas. To genuinely resolve concerns about the road width and emergency access, the council should implement double yellow lines where necessary to ensure clear passage for fire trucks and other emergency vehicles. Consulting with emergency services aligns with the legal requirement for consultation during the TRO process and would provide a more targeted solution for safety concerns raised by residents. As a resident of Government House Road, I believe this decision is unfair, and I respectfully ask the council to reconsider. Instead of a blanket 24-hour ban, let's work towards a solution that allows limited parking for local recreational users. This approach would promote community cohesion, support local families, and ensure that everyone can enjoy the River Ouse Esplanade. The current proposal, on the other hand, creates a social divisiveness that fails to solve root concerns. There is, however, still time to make a more informed and equitable decision that serves our entire community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll take that into consideration when I come to that decision. Thank you. The next person I have is Councillor Steels-Walshaw, speaking on item 7, I believe, the Riverside path. Welcome.
Thank you.
Want a 30-second?
Yes, please.
Okay. Yep.
Thank you. I'm Councillor Steels-Walshaw, one of the councillors for Holgate, and I just wanted to start by saying thank you very much to officers and the executive member for bringing this forward. For the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme. This is something that the Labour councils have long been pressing for many years. Securing the improvements to the Riverside Path is extremely welcome and vitally important, especially given the imminent closure of Lehman Road. I wanted to extend thanks to the 1,000+ people who responded to the consultation and attended the engagement events, which feed into the improvements which are going to benefit over 2,500 people who use the route every day. It's really encouraging to see the percentage of people who believe that these improvements will have a positive impact on improving the experience of pedestrians and cyclists who use the path frequently. Reducing the number of days that this path is unsuitable due to flooding is really welcome improvement as well for people travelling into town and young people travelling to school. I am aware that the area around St Barnabas Church has been a much discussed issue on the traffic management around Jubilee Terrace and would like to raise option 2B as the preferred option of no waiting 8 till 6 Monday to Saturday restrictions on Jubilee Terrace as part of this scheme. This appears to be the option that councillors have been advocating for, which allows traffic restrictions and meeting the community needs in part of the way for accessing during services and events. This would allow parking at the church on a Sunday, and as councillors, we're pleased to see that this goes further and maintains parking suspension for events such as weddings and funerals at the church. There would still be the facility for disabled people to access the church using the new disabled bays, and for people with blue badges to be able to park at any time they needed to access the church. Having had children who did attend St Barnabas Primary School, I'm really pleased to see improved safety and reduced parking and moving cars outside of the school, as this has been a really precarious area for children in amongst cars for many years, as well as improving safety for the cyclists who also pass through that area. Overall, for the people of Holgate, it would seem that the most viable option for the whole area, and it improves safety and travel options for the people in the area whilst maintaining access for the people attending St Barnabas Church. This project has taken many years to come forward, and it's vital that it goes through now to start on the project. Thank you.
Thank you, and I will take all that feedback into account. Thank you. Next, I've got Tom Kinslow. Sorry, Tim. Sorry, it was me misreading. Do you want a 30-second reminder, or are you happy? Okay, just go when you're ready.
So, effectively, the roadway running up... You can hear now. Right, so the roadway that runs up to church, I think for 125 years, that has been effectively the church driveway and church access. The church, the council put up a notice to adopt the road, The Highways Act of 1980 basically says that the council always has a responsibility to maintain the road anyway. So there wasn't necessarily the need to adopt the road, but the fact that they have adopted the road, or you have adopted the road, was because of the river path. So in discussions with the council, with Ken Hayes, the church retracted its objection to the adoption of the road on the basis of goodwill. And the reason for that is because in the emails to and from, Ken stated that there was no intention or apparent reason for the council to restrict vehicular access or make the road a pedestrian or cycle pathway. The section of the street is a shared surface and functions adequately as such. Well, if you put double yellow lines or no waiting over that section and area, by default, it actually becomes a pedestrian or a cyclist route. And I guess my view is that part of the infrastructure building of the river path is great to connect the communities, but it's important that we actually protect the community assets in those spaces, and also that it's not just an area where no money is spent. From the budget so far, there isn't actually any money being spent on that area of outside of the church. But actually the cost to the church is the reduction in parking and access. The church has some funds to develop the church as a building project to make it better for the community, for the Lehman Road community and for the York Central community that is coming and arriving. And we want it to be a place that actually all people can access, not just cyclists and pedestrians. And so we as already being discussed, we want to revisit the parking restrictions there. And the other piece is that actually all of the real estate could be used. It's not just the roadway to the church. There is a grass section, there is a path section, and there's possibility to use and segregate cyclist parking and walking in that space, and to create almost like a Lehman Road gateway in the whole of that area that could be open access across the church, not just to divide it up into small sections, if that makes any sense. So happy to discuss all those ideas outside of this meeting, and great, we've had these discussions already, James. And
Thank you. I'll take that into account. Thank you. Next, I've got Paul Millard. Would you like a 30-second?
I think I'll be okay.
You're
Thank you. So I'm the vicar at St Barnabas Church, and as Tim was saying, our main concern is the proposed changes to the parking outside St Barnabas. And though we recognise there are some benefits to changing the parking restrictions, there's also a concern as to the outworking of this and the impact this could have on the church and the church building itself, as Tim was saying, as the only real community space in the area of any size. And this concern is particularly about option 2A, I think, in the traffic regulation restriction scheme, effectively a full lockdown on parking. And based on point 110 from the public consultation, there's 34% was 109 people of that consultation that had the same sort of concerns on that extremeness of parking, I think. So there's three reasons why for us to look at changing things. Firstly, obviously, Sunday is critical for us at parking. We have members who do come in from outside of the parish. Those are people who've had a long-standing connection with St Barnabas, were born in Lehman Road and things like that. These people often come in bringing items for the services, events, doing practical fabric repair work on the building. These items are not always heavy or vast. Actually, it is really helpful to be near the building, and sometimes this can happen on a Sunday or during the week as well. Secondly, I think under point 107 in the report, we will maintain access for funeral and weddings, but presumably this is for the hearses and the wedding limousines, whereas actually if we've got relatives coming from far away, suddenly they're stressed coming to a funeral and then they have to go and find some parking elsewhere around Lehman Road, end up adding to the stress of already grieving people. This to me doesn't seem a very reasonable way to manage things. Thirdly, as a church as well, we want to love the community, we want to love Lehman Road. That's one of our vision statements, and serve the community. And this is most seen through the church being used as a hub for activities. For example, we have a community cafe that meets on a Monday morning. We have regular elderly users who come to that, some from Lehman Road, some again who've moved out but still have the connection. And though some of them are not disabled enough to require a blue badge, they still do need to drive in and be near to the church, ideally to park. We also host a toddler group on Tuesday mornings, a youth cafe on Wednesday afternoons, a tabletop sale once a month on a Saturday morning. We've hosted regular counsellor drop-in sessions, and these do from time to time need access to the church, and actually going to and fro is not particularly helpful, particularly using volunteers. Severe parking restrictions, I think, will create further obstacles to our current community work. And equally, we want to do more things in the community as well, but strict parking regulations will make this a significant challenge, leaving, I think, a social deficit in the community that needs to be provided for, not deprived more. I would suggest a more flexible and comprehensive review of parking restrictions being considered. One thing I might propose as an extra option is maybe a permit-based system, like we have resident passes. Could the church have a permit-based system to be used responsibly, not irresponsibly, clearly, where people could come along
3 minutes
sometimes.
is up. Can you?
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, next I have Peter Hale. Do you want a 30-second reminder?
No, I don't think I'll take it.
Yep.
My name is Pete Hale. I'm a member of the PCC at St Barnabas Church. I just want to talk you through the way that this has been presented to us at the PCC so far and about what this proposal means for the church and the Lehman area. When the proposal came to adopt Jubilee Terrace, our church lodged an objection. There's been a number of meetings between members of our church and people from planning and highways, and I have to feel, I'm feeling a bit perplexed about how the proposal to make Jubilee Terrace no waiting at any time sits when, as a PCC member, the narrative that's been relayed to me has been quite different. Just one example, an email that was written from our church warden to the PCC. I met with two people from Council Highways Department today. They informed me about the process and reason for the council adopting the road. The main points were the council considers the road a highway, which means it has to be maintained to a safe standard. Adoption does not mean that the council takes ownership of the land, but takes responsibility for the maintenance of the road. They agreed to formalise the 2 disabled parking bays, which would make them enforced by law. There is no current plan to change the use of the road, but there is a group tasked to improve the pathway into town, which may consider options for restricting parking at a later stage. This would probably be 2 to 3 hour restriction to prevent parking for town, the station, or for workers at the post office. They have asked if we now have sufficient information to withdraw our objection to the adoption. The problem here is that I feel that the church has been led to believe that adopting the road was motivated in a way that actually helps and favours the church. As a PCC, we agreed that 2 or 3 hour max stay might actually prevent commuters putting their cars there, whereas it still favours the church use. We agreed that the disabled bays being enforced as opposed to the current setup was helpful to the church, and how wrong we were, because making this road no waiting at any time has very obvious negative effects on us that have just been discussed already. I also say this as the father of 2 children with blue badges who regularly attend this church. I'd ask the decision makers to consider how this proposal to make Jubilee Terrace no waiting at any time fits in with the following 2 pieces of framework and legislation. One of them is from the Department for Transport's Manual for Streets. 8.1.2, the level of parking provision and its location has a key influence on the form and quality of a development and the choices people make in how they travel. The way cars are parked is a key factor for many issues such as visual quality, street activity, interaction between residents and safety. A failure to properly consider this issue is likely to lead to inappropriate parking behaviour, resulting in poor and unsafe conditions for pedestrians. I'm not aware of a plan for a church in the York Central development, so it's safe to assume that we're going to be the local church for many more people than we are now, which is brilliant. But we're removing parking at the same time. It would be contradictory to approve one decision for York Central that increases the demand for parking spaces at our church and then to approve another decision that reduces the number of spaces available. Secondly, the most obvious one is from the National Planning Framework, paragraph 200, which says planning policies and decisions should ensure that new development can be integrated effectively with existing businesses and community facilities, such as places of worship, pubs, music venues and sports clubs. Existing businesses and facilities should not have unreasonable restrictions placed on them as a result of development permitted after they were established. Where the operation of an existing business or community facility could have a significant adverse effect on new development, including changes of use in its vicinity, the applicant or agent of change should be required to provide suitable mitigation before the development has been completed. So the question there is, what's the suitable mitigation?
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next I've got Robin Jankel. Would you like a 30-second reminder?
I should be fine, thank you.
Okay.
York Cycle Campaign very much welcomes progress at last being made to realise the proposed improvements to the Riverside path. This vital active travel link from the Lehman Road Island area into the centre of York is used by 2,500 people daily and will be all the more important with the upcoming National Railway Museum and York Central changes that will impact on Lehman Road. We support the overall design approach with segregated pedestrian and cycle provision. The cyclists being routed away from the steep rail embankment will give a much better sightline for the approach to the narrow arch under Scarborough Bridge. We would urge the use of share with care and give way to pedestrian signage rather than the existing discriminatory cyclist dismount sign and chicane barriers. Whilst we appreciate the complexities around the embankment stability issue, we would be concerned if option 2 meant further significant delays to commencement of construction. Active Travel England funding was awarded 2 years ago, and further delay will impact on securing any more awards towards implementing other routes we so desperately need across York. In the light of this, we would support immediate progress on the parking restrictions near Jubilee Terrace, which we support to improve pedestrian and cycle safety, particularly at school times. We would suggest this might be an ideal candidate for a school street, making use of the new powers to ensure that the section near the church is not used by cars other than for blue badge access during school drop-off and pick-up times. We would support double yellow lines to help remove the hazards for cyclists of all ages. We would also like to take this opportunity to support item 6, removing parking from the Water End slip road. This will improve access for cyclists by joining a gap in the strategic cycle network and will make it safer by avoiding car dooring or being confronted by drivers trying to reverse or turn in a very tight space. It will help to make this route safer and more attractive to a variety of users, including women, children and disabled cyclists. Therefore, we support this proposal too.
Thank you. I'll take that into consideration. Thank you. And our last public speaker is David Finch. Would you like a 30-second reminder?
I'm planning to be succinct, but please do remind me.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
So I'm speaking both as a local resident and as the leader of the Friends of Lehman Park. When the stopping up order occurred in 2021, we put forward a very strong case of wanting to see the mitigation of the Riverside path improvements to precede the harm of the Lehman Road closure. Back then, the belief was that the stopping up would happen in the spring of last year, 2024, and National Railway Museum were hoping to do their 50th celebration this year, which clearly has gone back more than a year. But nevertheless, in those 4 years, we've seen precious little progress on this from the viewpoint of actual tangible benefits coming to the community so far. We put forward the case back then that Lehman Road is the diversion for us when we would normally use the Riverside path. It is the backup route when it is flooded or when people don't feel safe to use that route at night, for example. Paul Singleton, the inspectorate at that inquiry, very much acknowledged that the new route through York Central is a diversion on top of a diversion for us, and especially during the period while the National Rail Museum are going to be constructed, and there will be no walkway agreement in place for some time. We're now in a position where we are potentially months, we guess, from the stopping up being enacted. So 4 years down the line, we see this as a community as somewhat of a failure to deliver over these 4 years. Just to focus attention with a fun fact, I did do a rough calculation, and it has been 1,363 days since that planning inspectorate report, where Paul Singleton very much put the onus on York Council to make the Riverside path improvements. We were looking for legal certainty that York Central stopping up couldn't legally couldn't happen. We didn't get the legal certainty, but we certainly got the moral certainty in the write-up. The onus was put on York Council to do these things, and he definitely said that he supported the view that the mitigation needed to precede the harm, and that the new Lehman Road route is a diversion on a diversion for us. So in those 1,365 days, this has proceeded at what I'd say is a snail's pace. So I've calculated that a snail could transfer itself across the the Riverside path during that time 2,200 times at a snail's pace during this time. What makes it worse is the riverbank issue was known at the time of the Helmsley Group purchase, and we are still facing lots of uncertainty as to whether or not that will cause yet further delay. So, to conclude, I would say that clearly option 2 is the sensible option. It's common sense, but we would like to urge that this is proceeded with as much speed as possible from here forward. And please do not let the riverbank side of the project cause delay further still as much as possible. So if necessary, if it is possible to make progress on the other 2/3 of the path, if there is tangible reasons why the remainder can't proceed, please at least give us 2/3 of the benefits in a timely manner, if that is what needs to happen.
Thank you. Thanks for that contribution.
Thank you.
So that concludes the public participation, and you're all welcome to stay and listen to the remainder of the meeting, or if you want to leave, an officer will escort you now, if you'd like to. So, next item on our agenda is item 5, which is the review of experimental traffic regulation order for the introduction of blue badge parking and loading bays in the pedestrian area. And for each item, I'll ask the officers to introduce themselves and explain their role. So for this item 5, I believe Darren and James, would you like to introduce?
It would be me taking the chair. So hi, good morning. I'm Darren Hobson, Traffic Management Team Leader. So this report is around, as you stated, the blue badge parking that's been in place in the city centre for the last almost year now. We've put the parking in place under experimental order to see the real-time impact of it would have on blue badge parking. Undertook surveys before and during to see the uptake. The survey results showed that there was an increase in use of the area. It was unclear because it was a visual survey whether they were blue badge holders or learning activities and misuse, but there was an uptake which is positive and does give the impression it was by blue badge holders due to enforcement that was happening in the area. We received 4 representations in response to the consultation period, 2 in favour, and we're very happy with the introduction of the parking. The 2 that received an objection, although we're happy with the introduction, would like to have seen us increase the parking availability across the pedestrian area in other areas, including areas that currently they do not have access to. And the other representation was an objection about evening parking being misused by wording. This was quite early into the experimental order and the CEOs were made aware and enforcement action did occur. That resident hasn't been back in touch since, so we believe that they've not had the issues they were having in the short term. The recommendation within the report is to retain the blue badge parking in the locations it is, which is on Blake Street and Lendal, 10:30, which is blue badge parking 10:30 in the morning till 6 the following day, and then it'd be loading activities between 6 a.m. and 10:30, and then on Davy Gate, loading activities between 6 in the morning till 10:30 in the morning, and then blue badge parking over the evening period from 5 o'clock till 6 o'clock the next morning. That's an overview of the reports.
Thank you, and thank you for all the work you've done in putting this together. James, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I think Darren's covered it. I think the key point I make is that the proposal is to make the experimental TRO permanent, which is the decision before you today.
Thank you. So on this decision, Our administration is committed to increasing the accessibility of the city centre to everybody, and this decision supports disabled people who rely on blue badge parking. It enables disabled people to park closer to the northern part of the foot streets and for longer than the 3 hours that would be permitted on double yellow lines. Our transport policy target is to provide blue badge parking within 150 metres of significant trip attractors. This decision helps us to meet that target in the northern part of the foot streets, but we recognise that there are still some parts of the city centre where blue badge parking is more than 150 metres from key destinations, such as the post office on Coney Street. So we know there's still work to be done in improving blue badge accessibility in the city centre. However, this is a really great step forward, and it's a start in making that wider provision and making the whole of the foot streets accessible to everybody. So I'm really pleased with the work that's been done and the data that's been gathered, and I'm very pleased to make the decision and go with option 1 to make the existing experimental traffic regulation order permanent. Right, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is item number 6, consideration of the representations received to the formal consultation to extend R23 Residents Parking Zone to include Government House Road and no waiting at any time restrictions on Water End Slip Road. I've got Anne-Marie down here, but she's not here, so is it James?
Yeah,
you're presenting
I will
this?
cover this and may call on Darren. So, as you will remember, this came to your decision session in July last year, where the decision was made to advertise some restrictions. So, as you'll remember, there was a section of the Water End Slipway with no double yellow lines. That gets parked on, but people park on a chevron way to block the footpath, which was one of the concerns that was raised. We've advertised that element. We've also advertised residents parking on Government House Road. It's not a complete ban, as one of the public speakers said. It is a residents parking zone, so that means residents can purchase a permit and park on the road. And that would prevent displacement parking and parking to access the river from that location. The representations are contained within the annexes, so Annex A and Annex B show those. The majority of the residents who responded supported the proposals that are before you. I think it's important to recognise there is both support and objections in the papers. Some of the representations talk about access to the river and preventing that, and option 2, which is not the recommended option, does highlight some options about you could put some limited waiting, but we'd need to work through that. If you wanted to hear those objections. There was a written objection which was along the same lines as the objections that we've received already, and that was again about access to the river. So the decision before you is to basically make the traffic regulation order as per the advert, having considered those objections, whether you want to go for a lesser restriction, which is possible.
Thank you. That's
Anything
really
you want
helpful.
to add, Darren?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Just add one thing. Yeah. Just one of the public speaker, for clarity, whenever we advertise a proposed traffic regulation order, we do go to the emergency services part of that consultation process and consult with them. Sorry, I should have just addressed that point.
That's fine, and thank you for confirming that. Yeah, so I've had a good look at this decision. I know it's been a long while in the making. And it's really helpful to have the public speakers and the feedback we've had on this. What I can see is that it was important to consider both these roads in tandem, so Government House Road and Water End Slip Road, because despite them being very different roads, one's a residential road and one is a slip road leading down to the river, changing the parking arrangements on one road would always have an impact on the other one. So we needed to consider them in tandem, and I think that's the first point to make with this decision. With the Government House Road, we received the request to make it into residents parking back in September 2020, and The majority of the residents living on the road are in support of that decision to make it into a residents parking zone, and to avoid the parking there from commuters and recreational users on the road. At the same time, Water End Slip Road provides a link between the orbital active travel route and the Riverside active travel route. It's a short link, but it's an important one between two strategic routes. And we have a commitment in our transport strategy to enable people to travel sustainably, to walk, to wheel and to cycle. Currently, the Water End Slip Road with parking on it is often blocked by parked cars, and people are confronted by vehicles turning in this tight and steep place. And it makes this a hazardous environment for anyone who is walking, wheeling and cycling. By removing the car parking from that road, we prioritise those people who want to travel by active modes, and we create a safe link between those two strategic active travel routes. It's still possible for people to access the Riverside using a bus, or by parking at Marygate car park and walking from there, or by parking at Esplanade car park and walking from there. So there are options for accessing the Riverside using a vehicle as well still. And I'm comfortable that blue badge holders can still park in the immediate area, so anyone with a disability who can't walk as far will still be able to park either on Government House Road or on Water End Slip Road on the double yellow lines for 3 hours. And if it was on Government House Road, it would be unrestricted time. So there are options there for anybody who is unable to perhaps walk as far. So I'm comfortable with the decision we're making. I believe that officers have looked at this thoroughly and have listened to all the representations. And I think it's important that we take these two decisions in parallel, and make the environment both more accessible for people who are using active modes of travel, but also supporting the residents in their desire to join the Res Park area that's immediately surrounding them, so they're not just one road left out of the Res Park area. So I'm comfortable to go with option 1 in the decision pack, which is to amend the traffic regulation order to introduce the new residents parking priority parking restrictions for Government House Road to operate 24 hours, Monday to Sunday, and be an extension of the zone R23. And also to introduce no waiting at any time restrictions on the Water End Slip Road to restrict parking 24 hours a day, as outlined in Annex E. Thank you, everybody. So the last decision on this agenda is the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme. So, welcome. Who would like to introduce it?
Thank you. I'll do an introduction. Thank you. I'm Michael Howard. I'm the Head of Highways and Transport. The Riverside Path is a key route on the York Cycle Network and is well used by pedestrians and cyclists, connecting the west of the city centre via Scarborough Bridge. The project aligns with the adopted local transport plan and with the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. This scheme will increase the resilience of the path to flooding and provide an improved facility for both pedestrians and cyclists. As part of this wider effort, the Riverside Path will also form a key section of the Riverside, the York River Walk, an initiative designed to connect communities with York's flood and climate resilience work. We are seeking approval for the necessary steps and approvals required to advance the scheme. In December 22, public engagement was undertaken, with a report coming to the executive member in March 2023. In May 23, we were awarded £1.1 million by Active Travel England to deliver the scheme. And alongside this, we've been undertaking key stakeholder consultation with Network Rail and Environment Agency, but not limited to them. A preferred scheme was identified as a result of all of the consultation that had been undertaken, and this was taken to public consultation in late 2024. A detailed summary of the feedback and insights gathered during the public engagement process are summarised in this report. We are seeking authorisation to proceed to detailed design and construction and to progress to planning permissions needed to move forward with the project. Alongside the pathworks, a Riverside embankment structural review has been undertaken, which evaluates the current condition of the embankment and any associated impact with the Riverside path improvements. Within this report, we seek approval to progress a separately resourced and funded project to identify and confirm the remedial works required to improve the Riverside path embankment and to progress the Riverside path improvement scheme to detailed design and construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Would either of you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, so thank you. I think Michael's covered the majority of it, but we're seeking the following decisions is to either approve option 1, which is proceed with the detailed design and construction of the scheme based on the current proposals, but take no action on the Riverside embankment, or option 2, initiate a separate project. It's all detailed within the report, the executive member decisions we require. And we've got traffic regulation orders, which regarding the parking restrictions on Jubilee Terrace and removal, prohibition of cycling on the ramp. But in no way, this is not a decision to actually implement those. It's more a decision to start the traffic regulation order advertisement so we can follow that process. I think Michael's covered the work done to date, funding. So yeah, the report also, like Michael said, it's got includes public consultation feedback in there. Yep.
Thank you. And I'd like to really thank all the officers who've worked so hard on this scheme, because I know it's been a lot of work, and having to contend with the instability of the Riverside at the same time and try and find a way to progress this scheme has been a significant challenge, and I really appreciate the effort that's gone into that. To respond to some of the public speakers about the instability of the riverbank and how we manage that, I am as keen as all of the people who've come to speak about progressing this scheme and achieving the benefits that it will bring. But of course, we have to make sure that any work we do isn't literally going to slide into the river or create an environment. It's an investment we want to last. So I very much take the point about might be a point where we have to phase the scheme in order to accommodate the works of the stabilising the riverbank. And I think that the option we've got here allows us to look at that. There's more understanding to work out what work needs to be done on the riverbank, and budget has been put aside to start that work on stabilising the riverbank. But we need to understand how to phase it, and I'm very much in support of bringing forward as much of the scheme and the benefits of the scheme as fast as possible, whilst also ensuring that we make that riverbank stable and will last for many generations to come. So I really appreciate the comments that have come in around that. Now, I'm also aware of the concerns around the loss of parking at Jubilee Terrace, but I'm having to weigh up the benefit of that parking. I think it's for 8 vehicles, so 8 families potentially, versus the number of people that can be accommodated safely through that environment, walking and cycling along that area. And so if the parking is there, I appreciate the benefit that brings to those people who are visiting the area either for recreation or to go to church or to go to school. However, it then makes it an environment that is intimidating, perhaps for less confident cyclists or for pedestrians, and it means that perhaps children going to school by themselves, their parents will be less comfortable about them going independently. So there are many reasons why it will make it a safer environment to have less parking and less vehicle movements happening in that slightly, that constrained space. One thing I'd like to check with officers is, in terms of the nearest alternative on-street parking, my understanding is that it's not very far away. Can you confirm for me how far away the nearest alternative parking would be?
Obviously, there's some unrestricted parking outside the properties on Jubilee Terrace, but there's also unrestricted parking on Salisbury Terrace, which is 150 metres away.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And just one other thing, in terms of the people who came who were from St Barnabas Church were talking about access for funerals and for weddings, and also for unloading for people who are coming to the church and perhaps need to unload or load. How would the proposed traffic regulation order impact them if it was the traffic regulation order that was throughout the week?
So the double yellow, so the double yellow line proposed, the no waiting, still allows for loading and unloading, and there's no time limit on the unloading and loading. It's just an enforcement officer just needs to witness the loading activities taking place.
Okay, good. So in terms of the concerns that were raised around people who are coming to the church, perhaps needing to support the church in the activities that are happening there, that would still be enabled and facilitated with the proposed double yellow lines. And the ability to have funerals and weddings there, again, would be supported within that traffic regulation order. And as the officers have confirmed, the alternative on-street parking is not a considerable distance, and there are 2 blue badge spaces marked for anyone who is unable to walk as far from the nearby parking. So I am aware of those concerns. I am still thinking about that. This decision is about going to consultation with the traffic regulation order, so there will still be opportunity for people to feed back on the details of that traffic regulation order. But I think the balance here, in my mind, is to support the active travel, because this scheme is not just about enabling the people who are currently using this route for active travel, the 2,500 users who are using it each day at the moment, but it's about creating a scheme where more people will be able to come and use this route and enjoy the benefits of walking and cycling through the area, whether they're going to school, going to church, coming here for recreation, going to town, all the different reasons that this strategic route might be used. And so by future-proofing it in terms of making it wider, adding the lighting, and removing the hazard of vehicles on the route, we are really enabling many more people to use this mode of transport to come to this area. What else was I going to say? Yes, just to address the point about Lehman Road closing, I too am disappointed that we haven't managed to dovetail this scheme to fully support residents in the immediate area who want to access the city centre conveniently when Lehman Road closes. But I'm really glad that we're moving this forward. We will progress it as quickly as we can. So it's a great step to be where we are, and I'm really grateful for all the people who've been involved in the consultation and the huge amount of support that the scheme has had. So I really recognise that the community want this scheme to happen, and we will do our best to deliver it as fast as we can. And we're also, of course, very grateful for the funding from Active Travel England to enable us to do this scheme. It's a really great step forward for the city, and it's a kind of demonstrator of what we want to be doing elsewhere across the city. So, in terms of the decisions, it's a slightly complicated paper, so you might have to pick me up if I get it wrong. But I am going to opt for option 2, which is to progress a separately resourced and funded project and confirm the remedial works required to improve the Riverside embankment stability and progress the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme to detailed design based on the proposals. So that's the first bit of the decision, is option 2 for the overall scheme. And then I leap down to the scheme design itself for section, I think it's design section A. Is that right? No. At paragraph 104, the scheme design, I am going with option 1, which is to proceed with the affordable scheme as presented during the public consultation and to advertise no waiting at any time restrictions to the length of Jubilee Terrace outside the church as part of the formal traffic regulation order process. So that's the part of the decision for the first segment of the scheme. And then just going to the next paragraph. In the traffic regulation restrictions, I am opting for option 2A at paragraph 124, which is to undertake the statutory consultation to advertise a proposal for no waiting at any time restrictions on Jubilee Terrace as part of the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme. And then when we move on to because the scheme is divided into various sections, the next section is at paragraph 152, and I am going for option 1 to proceed with the affordable scheme as presented during the public consultation. Now, it says advertise a prohibition to cyclists using the ramp connecting the Aldborough Way estate with the Riverside Path as part of the formal traffic regulation order process. I'd just like us to review exactly what goes on that sign. I'm comfortable that we need to advise cyclists to use a different route and that isn't appropriate, but I would like us to look at exactly the kind of sign we use there, but to go with that option. And then design section B2 at paragraph 187. So this is the third segment of the scheme. I would like to go with option 1, which is to proceed with the affordable scheme as presented during the public consultation. And then finally, for the Riverside stability, I am going for option 2, which is the parallel delivery option, where we look at addressing the Riverside embankment stability and progressing with the scheme in parallel. So have I got all the right, have I gone through all the right decisions there?
Yes, there are some other decisions. 36, it's about delegating to Director of Environment, Transport and Planning in consultation with the Director of Governance and Head of Procurement to award Principal Contractor and Principal Designer for this Riverside Path Scheme.
Sorry, is that paragraph 36?
36, correct.
Let me just go back to that. Sorry, I missed that bit.
And 36, 37, 38 and 39.
Okay, sorry,
and 40,
completely missed that. I have read all of the report, but I just got slightly confused where my decisions were in it. So, yes, I am happy to approve paragraph 36, which is to approve the procurement of a principal contractor and designer to the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme and delegate authority to the Director of Environment, Transport and Planning in consultation with the Director of Governance and Head of Procurement to take such steps as are necessary to procure, award and enter into the resulting contracts. But also noting that the identification of remedial works required in the construction costs being excess of the key decision threshold, a further report would be presented to a future executive meeting. And paragraph 37, to delegate authority to the Director of Environment, Transport and Planning to proceed with all the necessary technical work, including preparation of a detailed design, investigation and conduct of diversions and of statutory undertakers apparatus to enable the works in regard to the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme. 38, again, delegating authority to the Director of Environment and Transport to approve the final design to be delivered for the Riverside Path, unless the scheme objectives or cost tolerances cannot be met without significant alteration to the preliminary design, in which case we'd come back for a further decision. And paragraph 39, delegate authority to the Director of Environment, Transport and Planning in consultation with the Director of Finance to carry out any necessary value engineering to ensure the Riverside Path Improvement Scheme remains within budget. And 40, approve the submission of any relevant planning applications required to deliver the scheme affordable solution and delegate authority to the Director of Environment, Transport and Planning to do so. And to approve the advertisement at paragraph 41 of an amendment to the traffic regulation order to introduce prohibition of cycling restrictions on Aldborough Way access ramp. As I said, just to check the wording that we use there and find the most appropriate wording. And to approve one of the following options, which I've gone for. Option A, introduce no waiting at any time restrictions on Jubilee Terrace. Does that cover all of those? Thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you, everybody, for the time public speakers have taken to come and give your feedback, and to all the officers on all of the decisions for the hard work that's happened in bringing them to this decision session today. So that is the end of the meeting, unless anybody has any urgent business to bring. No. Thank you, everybody. That's the close of the meeting.